Welcome to Idlewild Cottage, a quiet place where kindred spirits can linger together over a cup of tea, savoring all things lovely and cozy. My name is Juliana, and I'm delighted to have you. Each episode here at the cottage will center around a theme. That theme will be celebrated in a number of ways, through literature, art, nature, and even some favorite movie scenes. We'll cherish the sweet and simple things of life. So make yourself at home, and I'll put the kettle on. Valentine's Day may be behind us, but here at Idlewild Cottage, we'll keep love at the center of our hearts for a couple more episodes, wrapping up our series next week. So far, we've explored the love between sisters and the love shared among kindred spirits. This week, we'll shift our attention to next of kin. It's not an uncommon theme in literature for a child to be brought up by an aunt, uncle, or grandparent. In fact, I quickly found that I had to narrow down my selections, for quite a few of our favorite heroines find new homes among relatives. Though the relationships may begin on rocky ground, they ultimately end in newfound love and gratitude. Take, for instance, the ever-glad Pollyanna Whittier, who is cast upon her matronly Aunt Polly. Polly Harrington is very much set in her ways, and the sudden responsibility of bringing up her sister's child is, well, it's just plain unsettling. If you've either read the book written by Eleanor Porter in 1913, or if you've seen the movie starring Haley Mills, then you know how quickly Pollyanna's cheerful outlook works its way into the hearts of everyone she meets. From the get-go, we see that Pollyanna's natural joy and exuberance even slowly begin to chip away at Aunt Polly's seeming impenetrable reserve. It was nearly 7 o'clock when Pollyanna awoke that first day after her arrival. Outside, the birds were twittering joyously, and Pollyanna flew to the window to talk to them. She saw then that down in the garden her aunt was already out among the rose bushes. With rapid fingers, therefore, she made herself ready to join her. Down the attic stairs sped Pollyanna, through the hall, down the next flight, then bang through the front screen door, around to the garden she ran. Aunt Polly was leaning over a rose bush when Pollyanna, gurgling with delight, flung herself upon her. "Oh, Aunt Polly, I reckon I am glad this morning just to be alive." "Pollyanna," said the lady sternly, pulling herself as erect as she could with a dragging weight of 90 pounds hanging about her neck. "Is this the usual way you say good morning?" The little girl danced lightly up and down. "No, only when I love folks so I just can't help it. I saw you from my window, Aunt Polly, and I got to thinking how you were my really, truly aunt, and I just had to come down and hug you." Miss Polly attempted a frown, with not her usual success. If you'd like to step more fully into this joy-filled novel, you might enjoy the audio version available on LibriVox and warmly narrated by Phil Chenevert. Now, occasionally, it is the aunt who is more warm and welcoming, and the niece who harbors some degree of uncertainty. Such is the case in another Haley Mills movie, Summer Magic. We find the Carey family newly settling into the Yellow House in Beulah, Maine, when Mrs. Carey gets word that her niece Julia is in need of a temporary home. Well, by way of the song Pink of Perfection, we very quickly get an idea of how the Carey children feel about the impending arrival of Cousin Julia. For a humorous, poetic moment, we'll appreciate a few lyrics from this musical number. Envision Brother Gilly pounding away at the piano and Sister Nancy trilling away in mock adoration. "She's the pink of perfection from her prissy pink nose to her custard complexion and 11 pink toes. With a chin like a prune, she's a dainty baboon, and she thinks she's the pink of perfection." Well, Julia lives up to the song and arrives with her nose in the air. She primly shares with Aunt Margaret, the lovely Dorothy Maguire, her resolve to not let poverty get her down, but to rise above the grime of daily living here in this primitive backwoods place. Not surprisingly, after several jealous fits and starts, cousins Nancy and Julia find that they really do love each other. One scene finds them walking arm in arm toward their shared bedroom, chattering away, while a beaming Mother Carey looks upon them and bids them good night, sisters. We watch a cousin become as beloved as a sister in Louisa May Alcott's book, 8 Cousins, as well, though at first orphan Rose Campbell is not so sure what to think of her 7 boisterous cousins. She early on expresses her fear to sweet Phoebe, the housemaid. I could stand the aunts, but there are dozens of cousins, dreadful boys, all of them. I shall have to see them sometime, but I do dread it so. And Rose gave a shudder, for she knew nothing of boys and considered them a species of wild animal. Phoebe assures her, Oh, I guess you'll like them. I've seen 'em flying around when they come over from the point, sometimes in their boats and sometimes on horseback. If you like boats and horses, you'll enjoy yourself first rate. But I don't. I'm afraid of horses. Boats make me ill, and I hate boys. Poor Rose wrung her hands at the awful prospect before her. As with all good Alcott novels, everyone eventually lives happily ever after, and before long, we read of Rose blossoming under the care of her aunts, uncles, and cousins, taking her part in every sort of lark, including boats and horses, like one intent on enjoying every minute to the utmost. If Rose is warmly welcomed into her new life and family, imagine the grief of Emily Bird Starr, newly orphaned and cast upon her disinterested family. So reluctant are her numerous relatives to take her in that they ultimately leave Emily's future up to chance. Following her dear father's funeral, we hear from the grim Aunt Elizabeth, who, with her sweet sister Laura and lovable cousin Jimmy, make up the residents of New Moon. From Lucy Maud Montgomery's 1923 novel, Emily of New Moon, now 100 years old, we read the following. Emily, last night we could not decide who should take you. I may say that none of us feel very much like doing so, for you have behaved very badly in many respects. Oh, Elizabeth, protested Aunt Laura, she is our sister's child. Elizabeth lifted a hand regally. I am doing this, Laura. Have the goodness not to interrupt me. As I was saying, Emily, we could not decide as to who should have the care of you, so we have agreed to Cousin Jimmy's suggestion that we settle the matter by lot. I have our names here written on these slips of paper. You will draw one, and the one whose name is on it will give you a home. Aunt Elizabeth held out the slips of paper. Emily trembled so violently that at first she could not draw one. Draw, said Aunt Elizabeth. Emily set her teeth, threw back her head with the air of one who challenges destiny, and drew. Aunt Elizabeth took the slip from the little shaking hand and held it up. On it was her own name, Elizabeth Murray. Laura Murray suddenly put her handkerchief to her eyes. After the family has ceremoniously filed out of the room, we discover that Aunt Laura has been dearly hoping for this arrangement all along. She came up to Emily and drew her into her arms. I'm so glad, Emily. I'm glad, she whispered. Don't fret, child. I love you already, and New Moon is a nice place. It has a pretty name, said Emily, struggling for self-control. I've always hoped I could go with you, Aunt Laura. And thus begins Emily's rich life at New Moon. 10-year-old Fiona experiences a new life as well when she is sent to live with her grandparents in a small fishing village in 1940s Ireland. While we settle into this quaint town, let's imagine I'm pouring out steaming cups of strong Irish breakfast tea. I'll pass around cream, sugar, and scones as we imagine this magical movie, The Secret of Roan Inish, which blends warmth, mystery, and Irish legend, often conveyed through the stories of Fiona's grandfather. In one scene in particular, the pair are gathered cozily around the fire. Grandfather spins a tale, weaving truth and legend until one can hardly tell which is which. But what if every word is true after all? It falls upon Fiona to eventually unravel the true secret of Roan Inish. Let's use this story as the inspiration for our art focus today. Frederick Morgan was an English painter whose idyllic childhood scenes may be familiar to you. His work, Rowing with Grandpa, could very well represent a young Fiona learning to navigate the island waters with her grandfather. I can just imagine the stories he might be weaving with each pull of the oar and the way her mind would thrill with the secrets of her family's heritage. Secrets unravel in the last two works I'd like to share as well. Now, in order to draw out the mysteries of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte and The Inheritance by Louisa May Alcott, I might need to reveal a couple of spoilers. So, if you are not familiar with these stories and want them to remain a complete mystery until you are able to read or watch them, then you just might want to pause today's episode. That said, I'll try to keep my references as veiled as possible. Jane Eyre longs for home and family. Her early years are spent in the selfish and unkind home of her aunt and cousins, so when she truly finds family toward the end of the story, our hearts thrill for her good fortune. Jane's steady character and generous heart are revealed in the eagerness with which she plans to renovate Moor House with the assistance of maid Hannah as a homecoming surprise for Diana and Mary. Happy at Moor House I was, and hard I worked. So did Hannah. She was charmed to see how jovial I could be amidst the bustle of a house turned topsy-turvy, how I could dust and brush, clean and cook. And really, after a day or two, it was delightful to invoke order from the chaos we had made. I had purchased some new furniture and handsome carpets, and had carefully selected antique ornaments. When all was finished, I thought Moor House as complete a model of bright, modest snugness within as it was, at this season, a specimen of wintry waste and desert dreariness without. We later read that Diana and Mary were delighted with the renovation and decoration of their rooms. I had the pleasure of feeling that my arrangements met their wishes exactly, and that what I had done added a vivid charm to their joyous return home. Edith Adelon knows no family other than the kind Hamiltons, who welcomed her into their home when she was orphaned as an infant. Though raised among the family servants, as was deemed more fitting to her station, the lines are blurred, as Edith also serves as a companion to the Hamiltons' vivacious daughter, Amy. Amy often expresses the wish that she and Edith might really and truly be sisters in the 1997 movie, The Inheritance. This charming story is based on the Louisa May Alcott novel by the same name. And get this, Alcott was only 17 years old when she wrote of the lovely Edith Adelon, the dashing Lord Percy, the vindictive Lady Ida, and the key to the mystery which unlocks everything. At the time of this recording, The Inheritance is available to watch on Freevee. It just might be your cup of tea. We'll end our own cup of tea together, as usual, with a psalm. These words from Psalm 121 speak of the Lord's love in welcoming us as children into His family, just as our literary friends have found loving shelter in the homes of their next of kin. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He who watches over you will not slumber. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. Thank you for joining me today, dear ones. Please come again soon to Idlewild Cottage.